In the vast, wind-swept plains of the 13th century, a force unlike any the world had ever seen was forged. This was not just an army. It was a revolution in warfare, a machine of conquest meticulously engineered by one man, Genghis Khan. To understand the Mongol Empire, you must first understand its heart, its engine of expansion, the Mongol war machine. It all began with a simple yet brilliant idea. Genghis Khan abolished the old, chaotic tribal loyalties that had plagued the steppe for centuries. In their place, he built a new society organized for war. The entire Mongol nation was structured like an army. Men were grouped into units of 10 called arbans. 10 arbans formed a company of 100, which is called a jagan. 10 jagans made a regiment of 1,000, which is called a mingghan. And 10 minghans created the largest fighting unit, called the tumen, with a number of 10,000 warriors. Loyal not to a clan chief, but to their commander and to the great Khan himself. This decimal system was rigid. A man's unit was his family, his life. Desertion was unthinkable, as it meant the execution of his 9 comrades. This fostered an unbreakable bond and unparalleled discipline on the battlefield. The soul of this army was the Mongol horse. These were not the tall, majestic war horses of European knights. They were small, sturdy, resilient steeds, capable of surviving harsh winters and finding forage under deep snow. Every Mongol warrior had not one, but a string of 3 to 5 horses. This was the key to their legendary mobility. While on the march, a soldier would ride one horse until it tired, then leap onto a fresh mount without ever stopping. This relay system allowed the Mongol hordes to cover over 100 kilometers in a single day, a pace that mystified and terrified their sedentary enemies. They appeared out of nowhere, like ghosts riding the wind. And in the saddle, every Mongol was a master archer, wielding one of the most advanced weapons of the age, the composite bow. Made from laminated horn, sinew, and wood, it was small enough to be used from horseback, but packed incredible power. It could shoot with lethal accuracy up to 350 meters, far outranging the bows of their adversaries. A Mongol warrior could shoot in any direction, even backwards while riding away. This is the famous Parthian shot. Imagine a tumen of 10,000 horsemen, each capable of firing multiple arrows per minute. They were a storm of death, a cloud of arrows that blotted out the sun before the enemy even knew they were under attack. But brute force was only one part of the equation. Genghis Khan was a master of strategy and information. He built an intelligence network that was centuries ahead of its time. Before any invasion, spies, merchants, and scouts would be sent deep into enemy territory. They gathered crucial information on political rivalries, fortifications, troop movements, and local resources. The Mongols often knew more about their enemies than the enemies knew about themselves. This intelligence was then transmitted with breathtaking speed across the vast empire, using the YAM system. This was a network of relay stations stocked with fresh horses and riders, placed every 40 to 50 kilometers. A message could travel up to 300 kilometers a day, connecting the far-flung corners of the empire and delivering critical intelligence to the Khan's command tent. It was the Internet of the 13th century, a nervous system that allowed the Mongol army to react and adapt with lightning speed. Genghis Khan understood human psychology better than any general of his time. He weaponized fear. The Mongols cultivated a reputation for unstoppable ferocity and mercilessness. Cities that surrendered without a fight were often spared and integrated into the empire. But any city that dared to resist faced utter annihilation. Stories of their brutality were deliberately spread. They would send a few survivors to neighboring cities to recount the horrors they had witnessed, scenes like mountains of skulls and rivers running red. This terror was a calculated tool. It broke the will to resist. Many cities, hearing the Mongols were approaching, would simply open their gates, choosing submission over obliteration. But what happened when they encountered the great walled cities of China, Persia, and Russia? The nomadic Mongols were initially baffled by siege warfare. But they learned, and they learned fast. Genghis Khan incorporated conquered peoples into his army, not just as cannon fodder, but for their specialized skills. He amassed legions of Chinese and Persian engineers, the best in the world at siegecraft. These captives were forced to build and operate sophisticated siege engines right there on the battlefield catapults, trebuchets that could hurl massive stones, gunpowder weapons, and enormous crossbows. They would divert rivers to flood cities or build huge earthen ramps to scale the walls. The Mongols turned their enemy's greatest strength, their walls, into their tombs. On the open battlefield, the Mongols were masters of deception. Their most famous and feared tactic was the feigned retreat. A Mongol force would engage the enemy, fight for a short time, and then appear to break and flee in disarray. It was a tantalizing trap. Eager for victory, an undisciplined enemy would often break formation and give chase. This was exactly what the Mongols wanted. They would lead the pursuing army on a long, exhausting chase, stretching their lines thin into a pre-planned ambush site. Then, on a signal, the fleeing Mongols would turn. Fresh cavalry would emerge from hidden positions on the flanks and rear, and the trap would snap shut. The hunters became the hunted, surrounded, and annihilated. This tactic was used time and again with devastating success. Coordinating these complex maneuvers across a chaotic battlefield required a sophisticated communication system. With the roar of battle, shouting orders was impossible. Instead, the Mongols used a system of black and white signal flags, drums, horns, and at night, colored lanterns and flaming arrows. A commander, positioned on high ground, could direct his regiments like a chess master, ordering a feigned retreat, a flanking maneuver, or an all-out charge with a simple sequence of signals. This gave them a level of command and control that European armies could only dream of. The Mongol war machine was a self-sufficient organism. It carried its own food supply on the hoof herds of livestock. Soldiers were trained to survive on little, drinking horse milk or even the blood of their horses when necessary. They were tough, disciplined, and utterly devoted to their mission. They were more than an army. They were a force of nature, an avalanche of steel and horse flesh that swept across the known world, redrawing the map and forever changing the course of history. From the Pacific Ocean to the Danube River, all fell before the genius of Genghis Khan and the unstoppable might of his Mongol war machine. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey into the heart of the Mongol army fascinating, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell for more epic stories from history. See you next time.